All right. So this is the second class session, and we're going to talk about chapter 2, and there's going to be a homework assignment due this week with chapter 2. So I'm just going to kind of go through this here a little bit. So, hello, just a second, technical difficulty. Okay, there are great mysteries in the world today, and I actually have to give some credit to George Carlin for this. One is, why isn't there a synonym for synonym? Every word in the English language has a synonym except for the word synonym. Why don't sheep shrink when it rains? Wool clothing will shrink if you put it in the washing machine or get it wet. Why don't sheep shrink? Who knows? When police arrest mimes, do they tell them they have the right to remain silent, or is it implied? When sign makers go on strike, who makes their picket signs? Do the sign makers make them? Actually, that one I know the answer to. It's called inventory. They make them in advance, so they don't need to make them while they're on strike. Because otherwise, if they'd be making them while they're on strike, they would be violating the strike. Why is the word abbreviation so long? Look how long that word is. Isn't it just begging to be abbreviated? Finally, what is service? Now, 1 through 5, we're going to have to cover some other day, but today we're going to cover number 6. What is service? So let's think about what service is. The dictionary says that service is the occupation or function of serving. It seems like there should be a rule that says in the dictionary, you cannot use a word to define itself. That doesn't seem to make sense. I don't know. The work performed by one that serves. A form followed in worship or religious ceremony. That one makes kind of more sense, like a church service. That didn't use the word service or some form of it in the definition. Finally, the act of serving. Kind of crazy that they would use the word serving to define service. All right, so we know it when we see it. So for example, here we have from my day, flying on TWA, an airline that hasn't been in business for probably 25 years now. This was service here that we got. I know this is completely imaginary. You don't get food like this or this kind of thing either. This is all imaginary here. Or this is the kind of stuff we get these days on airlines. I'm not sure. Was this the chicken or was this the pasta? I can't tell. Anyway, lawmakers to airlines, improve service or Congress is stepping in. What does that mean? Congress stepping in? Are they going to be the flight attendants? Can you imagine this? Mitt Romney out serving snacks on a JetBlue airplane. All right, so common perceptions and misconceptions about what service is. One definition talks about service as being economic residuals. It's like leftover. So you have things like manufacturing, and it's not manufacturing. So you say service is not manufacturing. Or you can say agriculture. Service is not agriculture. What does that tell us? Service is not agriculture, it's not manufacturing, but what is it? Okay, the state of Texas. Well, I see, why did I put that there? Well, I can't remember. There was some joke about Texas I was going to put in here. So you Texans here in the viewing audience, make up something. I think it's probably done in the speaker notes here. I think it was something about Texas is, oh, I know what it was. When I was a missionary, I had a companion from Texas, or a apartment companion from Texas. And he told me once, he said, Elder Sampson, he said, when somebody ask you where you're from, well, there's no point in that. There's no point in ever asking anybody where they're from. He said, because if you're from Texas, they already told you. If they're not from Texas, they're embarrassed about it. So it's the idea that Texas is kind of like the center of everything. It's like manufacturing is the center of everything. No, that's not true. So this is kind of a flaky definition of service here. What's the value in saying something is not? It's like saying, oh, where do you live? Oh, I don't live in Texas. Well, what does that tell me? It doesn't tell me anything. All right, what is service? Services are processes. I hear this a lot. People say, oh yeah, service, it's a process. We're selling a process. Well, banking is clearly a process, the process of financial transactions, things like that. What about agriculture, wheat farming? Do we have any wheat farmings in the viewing audience? Is wheat farming a process? Yeah, it is. Is it a service? What about auto manufacturing? Is that a process?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Everything's a process. Service is a process doing something for someone else. I've heard that in the literature. They say that. It's like everything fits that. This again is a flaky definition. Okay. Services are intangible products. This is the one I hear probably more than any other. It's intangible. In fact, I just read a paper just yesterday where they said, oh, services are intangible products. So education, it's not very tangible, is it? Or is it? Can you touch the desks? Can you touch the chalkboard? Can you touch the students? Well, you can, but you'll probably get a lawsuit for it. What about surgery? Is surgery a service? Yeah, it is, probably. Is it tangible? Can you feel it? Can you touch it? Yeah, you bet. When the anesthesia wears off, you sure can feel it. What about food service? Is that service? Can you touch the food? Okay. Exercise, physical fitness services, auto repair. What about auto repair? Is that a service? Yeah, we think of it as being a service. But can you touch the car? Can you touch the equipment? Now, this is actually wrong, because in most examples, we have tangible elements within every service. So let's compare auto repair, a service, to auto production, like auto manufacturing, we think is not being a service. How are they similar? How are they different? So auto repair involves cars. Auto manufacturing involves cars. Auto repair involves equipment that's kind of orange colored. Auto manufacturing involves equipment that's kind of orange colored. Auto repair involves mechanics, lighting. They're kind of the same, aren't they? So the question is, what is the difference? That's what we're going to study this semester in the course. So, which is a process? They're both processes. Which is more tangible? Identically tangible. Were there other differences? Now, in class, if we were doing this, we would pause right now and have a discussion for maybe 5 or 10 minutes, where we'd ask you, what do you think about this? How else are they different? And students would share ideas. But since this is a video, it's kind of one directional, unfortunately. Whose car is it? See, that's one thing that comes out of this, is you have the discussion and somebody will say, well, the difference is this car belongs to a customer, whereas this car does not belong to a customer. Where's the customer in this picture? Down the supply chain, downstream. There's no customer there. The car is moving down the supply chain, ending at the customer. Where's the customer in this picture? In the waiting room, waiting for their car to be repaired. All right, a service, this is what we're going to do this semester. We're going to call a service a co-productive process that involves provider and customer interaction. So this is kind of the definition that we're going to build our course on throughout this semester. All right, so time for a quiz here. Again, if we were doing this live in class, we do this as a quiz. So, you know, kind of a call it out quiz, not a written quiz or anything like that. So processing food, is that a service or not? What do you think? Is it in a factory? Okay, for future customers, probably not. What about processing food, customer orders at a fast food restaurant? Yeah, it is. It's co-productive. Remember that word co-productive? It means that we work together. The customer and the provider work together. That's the idea of co-production service. Okay, what about assembling things, putting things together? Is that a service or not? Okay, what if we're assembling little plastic people in a factory in Taiwan? Okay, now, as you look at this picture, I see in the video audience, I'm imagining people with perplexed looks on their faces. And I know why you have a perplexed look on your face, because I have the same thing. Whenever I look at this picture, I'm thinking to myself, these people here, when they filled out the resume, did they write, I'm a people person, I like working with people, and that's why they're on this particular assembly line? I don't know. Okay, maybe you weren't wondering that. Okay, what about, so future customers, what about assembling real people down at the medical center? Service? Yeah. Co-productive. See, it's co-productive. The customer is part of the process. What about painting? Painting cars, service or not? Okay, what if we're painting cars in an assembly line in a factory in Detroit for future customers? Kind of not a service. What about if we're painting cars that belong to customers? Yeah, we think of that as a service. Okay, it's co-productive. The customer, we're not painting the customer. That would be kind of weird to have the customer come in and say, hey, can you paint me as well so I match my car? But we're not painting the customer, we're painting the customer's car. That's a service. Playing music, service or not? What do you think? Service or not? What if we're playing music at a studio on Abbey Road in the UK? Have any of you ever listened to the Beatles? Any of you know who the Beatles are? Do you remember the Beatles? Okay, I kind of grew up with the Beatles. This is for future customers. Versus producing crazed teenagers. I don't know if this link will work. About half the time these things work and half the time they don't work. Let's give this a shot. This is the Beatles. Are these teenagers crazy? Yes. Paul and John. It's enough Beatles fix for one day. So, what are they producing in the live performances? Music? No, they're producing emotions. They're producing people. Okay, if you do a live performance and nobody in the audience, not the same. Okay? You have to have customers there. If you're in a studio doing studio recording, there's no audience there. Does it work? Yeah, it works perfectly fine. All right, so co-producted. All right, service perspective. Services, process, customer resources. They could be the customer's selves, okay? They could be the customer's belongings, or they could be the customer's information. Those are the typical things that we process. Okay, what about wheat farming in Montana? What do customers provide to the wheat farmer? Now, some people say money, but that's not, they don't provide the money. They grow the wheat well before the money changes hands here. They don't provide anything. Okay, it's independent. What about auto manufacturing? They're making a car in Detroit or in Taiwan or wherever. Okay, customers don't provide anything. Later on, they'll give their money, but that's to make future cars. They make the car in advance. They make it speculative production there. So that is not a service. So these are no customer resources here. Therefore, it's not a service, whereas those were services. So the service perspective is, this is called the unified service theory. You'll read about it in your chapter. Services are production processes that act on or with customer resources. Okay, so we'll need to know that. We have suppliers providing inputs to providers who provide outputs to customers. Okay, that's a traditional model. Now here's a service supply chain. The customer first provides themselves belonging to their information to the service provider, who also has other suppliers, and then they process them and provide an output to the customer. See that? It's circular. This is called a bidirectional supply chain because the production flows both directions here. You see that? It's also a co-productive process. That's kind of our word of the day. I don't know if you noticed that, but that's kind of our word of the day. In a nutshell, services process customer resources, their selves, or maybe even their effort as part of that as the input to the process, their belongings and or their information. That's called co-production. Okay, so that's all that I have. I'll probably stop the video at this point. I actually have other slides that we could cover or don't have to. So I'll just show you them and you can say, thumbs up, thumbs down. You know, there's a good, there's a stupid. So this is actually from the book. There's a little table like this. The customer provides something to the provider then provides something to the customer. So, for example, accounting, what do customers provide?
Financials.
Yeah, they're financials, financial records. What do they provider? What's the output of the process?
Depending on the accountant, maybe tax.
Yeah.
Returns.
Complete tax forms or whatever it is, financial statements of some kind, okay? Air transportation, what do customers provide?
Themselves and their luggage.
Yeah, self and luggage, what do they get back?
Transportation.
Travel, Disneyland. Yeah, air auto repair, what do customers provide?
Car.
Car, what do they get back?
Fixed car.
Fixed car, okay? Consulting, business problems, solutions, dentistry, your teeth, and mended teeth. Education, student's mind and an educated mind. Legal services, problems, remedies, healthcare, injuries, healthier, like that. Okay, so here's a question, and I don't cover this in the plot, but I don't know, you can tell me if you think this is good or not. What do you call a surgeon who performs surgery without customer inputs? Okay, I'll tell you. It's called assault. All right, what do you call a carpet cleaner who cleans carpets without customer inputs? It is called breaking and entering or burglary. What do you call a sign painter who paints signs without customer inputs?
Graffiti artist.
Graffiti artist, yes. Things I hate, vandalism, irony, and lists. Okay, it's called vandalism. Okay, a barber who cuts hair without customer inputs. What do you call that? I'll give you a clue. What's my name?
Sampson.
Samson. You know Samson, Delilah, Bible story, Book of Judges. Okay. All right, we can leave that one off there. Summary, what are services? Intangible goods? Not. Our operation that processes customer resources. Customer intensive operation, the way we can say that. This is co-production. That's what we think about, is co-production. That's what we like. All right, so that's all I have for that. Now, here I could pause the video here, but what I'm going to do is just take you through our first assignment so the students will kind of know what to look for this. So here's the first assignment. Let me just make this go away for just a second. Sorry. Transition here.
You can edit it out in studio.
Yes, I hope so. Let's see. Here's our first assignment. Let's see if this works. Actually, I'm going to call this up on the screen because at the bottom, it's a PowerPoint file found on Learning Suite. And I can make this bigger here. So here's our assignment. I'm going to read this. Chapter 2, AE is analysis exercise. We have these like every week. They're due. They're due by Saturday at, what was it, 11:50 p.m. or something like that. So they're due by Saturday at the end of the day, each week. Diagram your service supply chain. Diagram a bi-directional relationship with a chosen customer, similar to the airline example, which similar to must have something grammatically wrong to that, because there's little dots underneath it. To the airline example shown in the PowerPoint file right here. That's what we're looking at. It's on Learning Suite. In the middle of the diagram, show the provider and the customer with an arrow depicting what resources the customer gives to the provider. So in this example, the passenger gives their cell phone luggage to the airline gives transport of cell phone luggage back to the passenger. So that's a customer relationship. See how it's bidirectional there? Okay, on the left, identify and diagram two essential non-service suppliers to the provider. Listen to what they supply. Non-service meaning not bidirectional, where they just buy something from the supplier. So I put jet manufacturer provides jet equipment. The airline doesn't provide anything. They just make the jet equipment. Peanut passenger, they provide peanuts. The airline doesn't provide shells or bags or anything like that. They just buy the peanuts from them. Okay, so these were some non-service examples there. Finally, on the right, identify and diagram two other entities that provide related service to customers, depicting what resources the customer provides and how those customer inputs are altered by the service provider. So in my example here, the passenger provides themselves to the TSA, the Transportation Safety Administration, and then the TSA gives you back yourself, but you are now qualified to get on the plane. Or they provide a hungry self to the food vendors. They go up and they say, hey, at the airport, I'd like to get some, greasy hamburger or whatever it is you want like that. And then they give you a fed self. They give you the burger and retrofit you with the burger, things like that. So that's our homework assignment. This is to do this Saturday. You can work on it now, or you can work on it Saturday afternoon, but don't work on it Saturday at 11:30 at night, because something's going to go wrong with your computer and you're going to be late getting it in, and we don't take anything late in this class. So you have all the way till Saturday to work on this. Any questions?
I don't remember if it says this anywhere, but you cannot do an airline as your.
Oh, thank you for saying that. All right, so you pick a business, but you cannot throughout the semester pick airlines, because all of my examples in the exercises are airlines. So what you should do is pick a service business. In fact, on Learning Suite, I have a thing about how to pick a business. Pick a service business. Don't pick wheat farming in Montana. Probably not going to work. Pick a business that you understand something about. Maybe you worked there before, or maybe you know something about it. You've flown on an airline before, so you know how that works. Pick a business that you're interested in. Might as well. Maybe something you might want to get a job working in or something like that. And do not pick airlines. And there's like one other advice thing on the website on Learning Suite, but I can't remember what it was. So good comment. Any other comments? All right. Well, enjoy. This is the second class session. Professor Sampson will be back next week. We hope. Maybe.
We'll teach the rest of the
We'll pick it up.
All right.
the PowerPoint.